Hey everybody, welcome back. This week we're going to work on another landscape. We're going to use two colors. I'm going to use Payne's Gray and Yellow Ochre. Maybe some titanium white. Titanium white. And that should be about it. Well, we'll see. As we're going into this, never be afraid to let your artwork evolve. I'm not going to put myself into constraints and just say that I'm only going to use two, but right now that's my goal is. So remember last time we talked before about composition and dividing your canvas into thirds. So we have something like that, something like that. Okay, just eyeball it, and then the point of focus should be right around one of these points. Um, it's generally speaking, it's not all the time. It's usually what ends up happening in the point of the composition. But what I want to do with this is I want to try to put my horizon line here, and the definition of the horizon is where the sky meets the land, right? So that's there. Where the horizon is usually at eye level. Okay, I want to add a tree line or something back here. It's going to be fairly dark. We're going to add a bunch of dark up here in the sky. So like all this is going to be dark, and then we'll have some clouds. They're going to go through here, and we're going to try to show some perspective with some cloud ceilings here and here, going all the way down to just above the horizon line. Put the cloud ceiling all the way down here in some spots. So, oh, and I also want to work on some water too. So we're going to have a reflective surface, and we'll put in some land masses, like maybe some swampy areas, like somewhere around in here, and maybe something over in here. It's always good to sketch your stuff out. It gives you an idea of the composition of what it is you're trying to accomplish. Of course, the water we want to keep in mind, and we want to reflect the sky. Obviously, we're going to want to show some reflection too. So we'll get into that. Cloud stuff here, cloud stuff here. Boom, 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 bing, bang. Okay, so then let's get started. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to load my brush up with Payne's Gray and some yellow ochre, and I'm using as my medium, I'm using linseed oil and odorless paint thinner in a 50-50 mix ratio. It's a smaller canvas, so I'm going to be using smaller brushes comparatively to what I did last time. I'll put the size on the screen. I don't remember off the top of my head. But I'm just a flat brush, and I'm just slopping color up here on the screen. I'm not worried. I'm just slopping color up here on the canvas, not the screen. I'm not worried about brush strokes at the moment. I just have a very soupy mess in regards to the paint. And I'm just putting it up here liberally. Now, when I say soupy mess, it's not quite thin enough that it's going to run. I don't want it to run. And something else I want to do too is I would like it to be darker towards the top of the canvas. And we can come back in later after this has set up and dried. If we need to add some more dark, we'll come back in and add some more dark. It's nothing wrong with that at all. So as I'm putting this together, I'm just thinking about the shapes of my clouds, what I want my clouds to look like. Um, I don't have anything specific in mind other than kind of big and fluffy. And some of this will happen when I go in and put the white on and I start to mix it up. I like to work from top of the painting down. Usually, it's sometimes depending on how you set it up, it may call for a different approach. But right now, this is kind of what I'm wanting to do. So here's again, we're thinking about things and that are on the top of the canvas that are probably closer to you. And then as we head down to the horizon line, they tend to get pushed back. So think of the perspective and the cloud line or the cloud ceiling. Keep that in mind. Also, as we go down closer to the horizon line, things are going to tend to get to get lighter. Light source. Well, we've already put a shadow in here of sorts, so I'm kind of thinking the light source is going to be coming in this direction. But we can change that. You know, like if we start, we can rub this out later, and if we wanted to start, imagining shadowed shadowed bits of clouds here, here, go into a cloud ceiling here, maybe some shadow bits here. And it may seem bold and dark right now, but it's going to lighten up. Later, after this is dry, I like to come back in and add some secondary color and stuff like that. So this sky here may end up being more of a lightened cerulean blue, and I may do that and bleed it into the tree line that I have, which is going to really push things back into the environment. I'm going to take my 1-inch brush. I'm just going to I'm just going to blend this a little bit. See, so I probably got this a little bit too soupy. It's not holding the dark color like I wanted to, but that's okay. My main objective right now is to take out a lot of the brush strokes and just to blend the darks and the color tones that I've got going on here. And I'm just doing swirly motions, just swirly motions or X's here. And not necessarily doing it with the tip of my brush, I'm using the sides of the brush. So to exaggerate it, it'd be like this. Tip for blending, sides for smoothing. Okay, and as things go farther away, I want to do more of a horizontal stroke for my smoothing and blending because I'm not trying to convey height at this point. It's just depth, and I'm trying to blend it out nice so that it goes lighter and lighter and lighter. So you can kind of see a working gradient as we go from the top of the canvas down to the bottom. Sometimes you can also use, depending on what you're trying to cover, how you're trying to cover it, you can use a palette knife. This is a palette knife that I like to use for applying a lot of this kind of bulk material. You just get in there and just put it in. Again, the paint is really loose and wet right now at the moment, so this probably isn't the most opportune time to do that. However, you can still get in some really nice color breaks and accidents that would not have happened otherwise. Because now the paint, I'm taking it. This isn't the watered down. This isn't the diluted with the paint thinner. I'm sorry. What are those mineral spirits? This is just straight out of the tube. A little bit darker, heavier paint. So now when I go in and start blending, you see that it holds its color and it doesn't get. It's not as easy to just kind of soup away. I just want the top of the canvas to be a bit darker. And the palette knife can give you some nice textures and effects. You just go in it. No big deal. At this point, we're just putting down color. We're just blocking things in. There we go. Nice and dark at the top, gradient as we come down. I wasn't going to work on the clouds just yet, but while we're here, I guess we can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a fan brush and some titanium white right out of the tube. I'm just going to not load, but I'm going to put some on the tip right here, and I'm just going to go straight in to where I want these clouds to be and just dance the brush around. No, just completely random, because that's what clouds are. That's what clouds do. And you can't go very far until you start picking up paint. Wipe off your brush, go back, and reload it. And then hit it again. Just go right in there. Wipe it off, load it up, and go right back in there. Work in layers from back to front of the cloud. Because what you'll want to do now is take your clean 2-inch brush, and you're gonna go and you're gonna fluff the tops of the clouds and blend the bottoms. And the reason why you want to work from the back to the front of the clouds is because you can start adding depth. You'll see. Work a little bit, wipe off your brush. Especially when you're working with white paint. When you're working with white, you don't want to muddy it up so much. So that dark color will pick up and it'll start taking. You can use your fan brush too. I'm gonna blend this a little bit with the cloud ceiling right there. You don't want too of a hard edge, just kind of bring them together. And I want to push some of these clouds back here back a little bit. So with the white still on my brush, fluff, fluff, fluff. Let those wisps happen. Those wisps are awesome. They really help lighten up the clouds. Now, you see, this is a darker white than what this is up here. So this brings this cloud forward. With a clean brush, I can go back in, grab some more white paint. And you see how that the brightness just brings this one, this brings it forward. There. Know how much color that you have on your brush. Pay attention to it. Use it. Just scrubbing some color right now. I'm just kind of getting it on the canvas. And you can kind of see how it's starting to take form. And this is just completely going at it. I mean, just randomness. Just whatever you see, how you see it is what it needs to be. Now, what I want to do here, I've got a dark rim on these clouds here on the bottom of the cloud ceiling. So you want to work with some yin and yang. So you want to have your dark, your light, dark, light. And right here is where that dark bit is. So I don't want dark against dark. I want light against dark. So I'm going to leave that. I got some fresh white on my brush. I'm going to push that right up in there a little bit. And then as I come down, let it pick up on some of this darker color. Show the shadow of the cloud. See, it's added a little bit of light right here in the front. Pushes this part of the cloud back a little bit. I don't want too many corners and such, so you want it to stay fluffy. So I'll just put a little bit of that there. But it pushes the part behind it, pushes it back. Here I'm wanting to add a little bit of contrast next to the clouds. when you pull your brush slowly, more paint has an opportunity to hang on and come off of your brush versus if you go really fast. The size of your brush matters too. If you go and start a painting with a really small brush, you will tend to focus on the details, the minute details of the painting, and you can get hung up in an area uh, of your painting and neglect other parts of it. What I recommend is that you start with the largest brush possible for your painting. And then as you get into more of the details, then start working with smaller and smaller brushes. Use it as a step, not as a just go for first one and done. So again, all I'm doing right now is really I'm just still just blocking in color, shadow, where I want shadow to be, bringing out some highlights and contrast as I see things kind of take shape. Every cloud is different. Don't think that your clouds have to be the same as some other artists that you've seen that you're trying to emulate. Um, Clouds are just as unique as each individual person. Take a moment too, as you're putting in these things in, just take a moment just to stop and look at what you're putting together. Sometimes things change. You change your mind. The idea evolves. So again, this is a tonalist painting, um, which means that it's a painting that's put together with usually a limited color palette, um, and its definition is done through value, color value, not necessarily color hue. You can use any color you want to, and if your values are all correct, then it's still gonna be understandable to the viewer. So these paintings are all done with value in mind. That's why I emphasized earlier the yin and the yang of the composition. Let these things build on each other. Don't be afraid to let the paint mix with the paint that you've already paint from your palette to mix with the paint that's on your canvas. Again, that's where the values come from. The tonal values. There are different things like hard edges, soft edges, lost edges. Um, we're not, those are found a lot in still lifes, and we're not going to go too much into them here. Okay, I want this a little bit darker. Remember, we're going to play with that yin and yang, and I want a white, or not necessarily white, but a bright glow along the horizon. So we'll go and scrub some white in here as we get the clouds start to go off into the distance. Bring these two together. And we'll get some paint on here, and you'll see why in a minute. I can bring the landscape color and mix it in with this sky color right here. And this horizon line, the white, even though the terrain may up and down, the sky, the cloud floor is stayed relatively straight. So don't think you have to follow the curvature of the horizon. Let's do a little bit of fluffing right here. Not too much. Like I said, we can come back over this later on when this is set up a little bit, and we'll add some more darks and lights as needed. So, yeah, as you start to blend some of these things, you get paint picked up on your brush, and you can use that opportunity for that paint to move it somewhere else. Sometimes you end up taking paint off of the canvas. You don't necessarily want to do that. Again, the horizon, the further back you go, so you don't see as much of this lift. So I'm just using side to side strokes. I don't want to get rid of all of the brush strokes. Some of those add for some interesting, this interesting variance in the clouds as it goes back. And now I think we can start on the land. Okay, so again, I talked about a darker tree line. So we're just put in, this is the same brush that I've been using through this entire thing. Just twist and turn it, get different shapes, because tree lines are not, it's not just a straight, not just a straight line. Push it up into some of that sky color that we had up there. It'll start to blend. It'll start to blend with that and kind of give it that illusion of distance. I want this tree line to go all the way across. At the bottom of that tree line, I want it to flatten off a bit. This is just grassy ground. Now, when you're working with these brush strokes, there's a couple different kinds. If you go from side to side versus up and down. So side to side, obviously, it's going to give you thinner strokes, which is what you want, especially when you're closer to the horizon. When you're laying out the lay of the land. When you get down here and you're starting to put in some grassy areas, or trying to lay down a bunch of bulk paint, use the flat of the brush. Again, I'm using two colors. I'm using yellow ochre and Payne's gray. And try to break up some stuff. So you see the kind of the streakiness that's in the stroke. You really, really want that. It's just later on, it just adds detail. It really does. You can kind of use it to your advantage, especially just starting off. You can put in, you can kind of see the lay of the land, which really, really helps you organize your painting. Maybe it can inspire you to do something different. Maybe something else jumps out at you. We'll have this river kind of going back here. Yeah. Okay, so before I get too far, what I want to do is we talked about reflection. So I want to bring some of this reflection down in here. So how am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to just start putting in some color where I want the color to be. Now, the further back it goes, the more of this sky it's going to pick up here. And then as I come forward, more of the other sky is going to come in. And the reason why I want to put color down first, even though the watercolor, even though it's just reflection and it's just going to get, you're like, well, that just looks all muddy. Well, you need a dark background or a dark starting point um, to put all this stuff in. If you don't have anything that's going to show your reflections. we can start with that. Wipe my brush off just a little bit. Clean my brush just a little bit, and I can help this gradient here. Because I'd like to go from like a nice gradient, just like this is the sky. Goes from a light to a dark. I want the water to go from a light to a dark this way as well. Okay, I'm going to use my palette knife just to put in some of the stuff in the background. I want white paint back here because I'm going to be using it for the reflections here in just a moment. Again, I just want some wet paint, not just the white of the canvas, because of what I'm going to do next. So I'm going to take my 2-inch brush, and I'm just going to just pull down. On all of this. Everywhere that there's water, I'm just going to pull down. Then I wipe off my brush and just go nice, soft, just soft, soft, soft across. Now I can go in and start dealing with some of this stuff. And you pull up, just use your brush, pull up, tap, pull up, tap, pull up. You can see, I don't know if you can see on the camera. I'll try to zoom in here, kind of give you a better idea of what this is doing. It gives this finer blades of grass. And as we, because I would like this to be swampy, a swampy kind of thing. So again, you put in some dark foundation because you have to have dark in order to show your light, and then you go on with some of the other colors, lighter colors. You just go ahead and start pulling up, pulling up, pulling up, pulling up. Pull down. Pull down, nice and soft. Wipe off your brush after all that. And just like you did with your 2-inch brush, just lightly, just kiss it. Pull it across and blend that reflection out. We'll go in a little bit and put in some water lines so that you can see a little bit better what was going on with when the water meets the land. So now we're going to do the same thing over here on this side. And there's going to be a little bit of a shadow back here where the land meets the water. I want to we'll put in some dark. We're going to put in a bunch of dark. And we're just going to tap it in. This is getting closer to the viewer. So what's happening here is there's going to be a little bit more detail. So this tapping motion right here, turn your brush, twist and turn. It's going to add a variant of implied detail. It's going to make your painting really stand out. As you get closer to the bottom, try and get more and more pure Payne's gray. That's the darkest color on your canvas at the moment. But you still want that nice gradient going from lighter to darker here at the bottom. So right now I'm just trying to get some color on there. We can come back and darken it up if we have to. Kind of like that look, so we'll see if we can put some over here. Change my brush. I brought in this one that we used on the last painting because I like the texture. So I put it in my Payne's gray just so I can get a little bit more of that grassy texture on top of the color that I've already got on there. Now, just like in the last one, in the last painting that we did, you can take a paper towel and twist it nice and tight. Do that. And we're gonna just whip the canvas with it, and it's gonna give us some light streaks through here, which again is just playing on that dark and light, that yin and yang. So here we go. Just put it wherever you want at random, wherever you think that they should be. And it just implies so much detail. Something else that we can do is we can take that paper towel and you just roll it on itself, so you have a nice, interesting bit right there. And you just dab on the highlights of those bushes that would be in the foreground. So after a while, your paper towel gets saturated. Find a new clean spot with lots of roughness and interesting bits. And just go here and there. Maybe make the tip a bit smaller for some things that are further away. And again, you have paint. This is essentially a paintbrush too. Just you're transferring paint from one area to another. So you can see how this is kind of coming to life through here. Doing one step first, like first we whipped it in, and then we dabbed on top of that. So which any streak that was put in there from the whip is now pushed back because we dabbed on top of it, creating more depth. I'm taking my palette knife, I'm going in. I know I want shadows right along that shoreline back here. Try to keep these things straight. Water is level. I'm using the dark color right now. I am going to come in and use a light color in a moment, but I want to get some more darkness in here. knife off your palette knife. I'm going to go back into my titanium white. I'm just putting a small roll. You can see that I'm putting a small roll on the edge, and right underneath that gray that dark gray that I put in, I'm going to start putting in some water lines. I prefer this brush for blending and making water versus the other one that I just tried a little bit ago. So the water lines I just put in, I'm not going to pull down. I'm just going to go straight across, straight across. And just smooth it out. I have some old brushes that I like to use for texture. So this is just an old natural bristle brush. Just dip it in and just touch. Just touch, push, pull. Just breaks up some of that. You don't want too much pattern, too much monotony, whatever word you want to use to describe it, repetition. Um, so just pop some here, there, especially when you get into areas that are going to be fighting for contrast. So this right here, for example, um, make this darker, and I could potentially make the water behind it a little bit lighter if I wanted to, which I may, but I mean, right now I think this is looking okay. Lift, lift, lift. Again, the closer the objects in the painting get to the bottom and the top, the closer that they tend to get to the viewer. So what I'm doing now is just darkening the bottom of the water, or the water that's closest to the viewer at the moment. It's also going to lighten this edge right here, right next to this shrubbery here. Trying to help add some contrast to that area. I think I want to add a little bit more color. I just dab some on, pull it down, side to side. Okay, now I want to put some color highlights over here in this area. Use my fan brush and just pop in some stuff. Just up, just push up, push up. Painted over what I had there. I really wasn't liking it too much. I didn't like the gradient of the land, the color gradient. So I rinsed off my brush, um, and I'm just going over it again, and then I'll be able to reapply those same techniques. So I'll show you those again. So again, here we go. Just twist a paper towel into a whip, and then just start applying texture. When you're done with that, just take it, ball it up. You have something interesting go there as far as rolls and bits, and just start dabbing where you believe highlights would be. Start removing some paint. Um, when your paper towel becomes too saturated, re-roll it. Off in the distance here, I want to add some highlights to the ground. So what I'm doing, I'm just dipping my brush into a little bit of odorless paint thinner, and I'm going to just swipe and wipe it off. Swipe and wipe it off. What I'm doing is adding highlight to the surface of the land. It's way in the distance. And because it's way in the distant, um, obviously things are going to be on top of it, going to be growing on top of it. So we want to take some of our same land color, and we'll just go in. I'm using this my smaller brush. And it's kind of just breaking up that line a little bit. So it's not just some monotonous line, there's actually stuff that's growing that you're seeing on top of it. that's in the foreground. Lighten up the bottoms of those if you can. And you can see, start to build a line of depth. There, and at this point, you can piddle with it for a long time. I mean, you can just keep going and going and going. And maybe that's what you want to do. Maybe it's not what you want to do. Um, Adding layers is awesome. So some of the stuff along the tree line here seemed a little bit light because remember I mixed it with some of the sky color that was up there. Remember I painted the white along the horizon, and then when I put my tree line in, I painted it up, which mixed with the white paint and it lightened it up. So what I can do now is I can go in with a little bit more of the darker paint, not cover it up. Don't cover it up, but you can put it in places and you can kind of see where it would work. And you can have some darker bits in front of some of the lighter bits, and it's just going to add to the illusion of the depth that you've got going on here. Try to zoom in on some of those details so you can see them. Now, next time what I want to do is I'm going to want to come in and maybe we'll put some blue on the horizon there, and add a little bit of blue, and then we'll keep some of the light glow right along the horizon, the tree line. So the blue will mix with some of the lighter tree color as we create the horizon, as we create the environment of the painting. I don't think I'm going to put any blue in the sky outside of this, so this will be like all solid dark cloud cover, and then also like a peak of blue, like right through here. Maybe some of that gets reflected a little bit in the water. Um, and maybe we'll add some more darks and lights in the water as well. We'll see how that goes. I'm just trying to keep this water smooth. Okay. Um, so I think this is all that we're going to do this time, outside of me piddling with this for just a little bit. There we go. I hope you enjoyed it. Um, Join me again next time after this painting dries. So it could take a week. It could take two. I did some stuff preparatory to this to help speed the drying time. So hopefully I can finish it up next weekend. I will let you know what I did and if it works, and we'll go from there. Uh, so until then, you guys have a great day. Subscribe to this channel if you like what you see. Give me some comments and feedback. If there's anything that you would like to see me do or see me change, and I will see you next time. Bye.